Lowe, and I'm going to be talking today about dynamic difficulty and specifically what dynamic difficulty, say 2.0, could look like in next year's MLB The Show game. There's three sections that I'll be going over in this particular video. The first is just a basic explanation of what dynamic difficulty is, in case anyone's not familiar or just needs a brush up on what that is if you haven't seen it in a while. And then we're going to look at some box score results. We're going to look at some pitcher and batter analysis. And then after that, we'll actually go into the slider section and start to look at what some of these sliders do and how they could actually start to interact with a potential dynamic difficulty 2.0, even sort of like a live update sort of situation. So I'll talk all about that. But first, again, dynamic difficulty is it's not anything new in this year's game. It's been around at least a couple of years. I think 2015 is the first year we saw that come in. And it's a really brilliant idea. And if you've seen it, if you've ever gone into the slider page, which I'll show you later in the video here, I can't on this screen, but if you've ever gone into that slider screen, you'll see the very first slider is actually called dynamic difficulty. And what that's doing is kind of influencing the responsiveness of dynamic difficulty and how quickly it starts to take into account your ability to make the game either easier if you're struggling or more challenging if you're dominating. And how dynamic difficulty has worked since its introduction, from what the San Diego Studios team has told us, is that it's based off of your OPS, right? So your on-base percentage plus your slugging percentage, and that makes a lot of sense. If you're completely dominating and every game you have an OPS of like 1 point, over 1,000 and 900, that sort of thing, it's probably a little too high, right? And so the game's going to adjust, and it's going to adjust the difficulty level to make the game more challenging. And within the dynamic difficulty, you actually have more than just, say, veteran and all-star and Hall of Fame and legend and rookie. You actually have these stages in between that are like plus and minuses. So you can start at rookie and you'll progress to rookie plus, and then I think it's like rookie plus plus, and then you bump up to veteran, and then there's veteran plus, and so on. And if you struggle, you could go back down to say like veteran minus, and eventually it could drop you back into rookie and what have you. And so eventually you will settle on a nice difficulty level. The issue with that, so again, that was kind of just the basic intro dynamic difficulty, but the issue with that, or I guess where the San Diego Studios team could really take this and turn this into dynamic difficulty 2.0 is not just looking at OPS, but looking at the actual statistical output beyond OPS, and even the results that aren't necessarily measured in, say, a baseball box score. But let's start with actually the box score, because I think that's the first place that a dynamic difficulty 2.0 should look. Now, I've already gone through and calculated this up, but batting average on ball and play is an interesting statistic. And what it does is it takes your team's total at bats, it takes your team's hits, the number of strikeouts, the number of home runs, and the number of sacrifice flies you've had. And it's a pretty simple equation, but I would still recommend using a calculator because it's a little cumbersome. But what it will do is, just as it sounds, it'll take the batting average of balls that you put in play that didn't leave the stadium, that weren't caught for a sacrifice fly, if I leave the stadium, like a home run, of course, and weren't, of course, and it removes non-balls put in play, like strikeouts. And what it does is it shows you that batting average. And so your typical team, if you look especially last year's baseball season, the average team was right around a 300 batting average on ball and play. Some teams were higher. I think the highest was 322. Some teams were lower. I believe the lowest was 280. But typically you're going to be within there. Now, some games you're going to be much higher. You could have a game where you're at 500. You're going to have some games you're under 100, right? I mean, think of like a no-hitter or a one-hitter, that kind of thing. But at the end of the season, you're kind of falling within that pattern. Now, this is a game I just finished in my franchise mode most recently. And I've already calculated these, but my batting average in ball and play for this game was 310. I'm the Marlins, right? So I had a batting average in ball and play of 310. The Mets, I should say, were higher. I think it was 396. So they had a pretty nice hitting game, but a lot of that came from they struck out more, so they did not put as many balls in play. But the ones that they did were falling for hits more often. So they actually had a pretty decent. Now, I think that's a nice place that the game could start looking to adjust your dynamic difficulty. And dynamic difficulty 2.0, when we get into the slider section of this discussion, I think that's where they could start to really look at, again, the first stat here, batting average ball and play, and start adjusting not just the difficulty level, but individual sliders based on that. So if you have a batting average that's balls in play that's too low, but you're making good contact, there's a couple things that you could do, right? The game could either say, well, you're making too much contact and it's bad contact. We need more of that bad contact to actually turn into more like swings and misses, for instance, or more foul balls. Because in essence, even though that sounds negative, it'll actually increase your batting average of balls in play because it's going to only allow balls in play that are struck more efficiently, right? So that could actually increase your batting average on ball in play. Another very simple way that the game could increase that would be to take batting average on ball in play and say, okay, it's too low, so let's just increase the contact slider. That's the slider that's going to most influence your batting average, right? Or it could be the solid hit thing if we're seeing too many fly balls. So anyway, that's the first area I think the game should look at is batting average on ball and play. Of course, it could go deeper. It could start to look and say, hey, okay, cool. This is a game where actually both teams, the Mets and Marlins, both had 3 doubles, right? So they had 3 doubles. My team had 3 doubles, and there was no home runs. That's pretty common, right? You're going to see more doubles than more home runs. What's interesting is if you follow the MLB The Show Twitter, you'll see that they've tweeted out some of the Diamond Dynasty results, right? Very early on. Like, hey, check this out. These are the stats that the community has accumulated. It was a pretty cool tweet because it showed how many singles and doubles and so on. But even in that mode, you're seeing more home runs than doubles. And folks, that's wrong, right? So instead, dynamic difficulty, say they could look at that. Let's just say that image was actually your franchise mode. It was your season mode or whatever. Or maybe they could even apply it to Diamond Dynasty. Regardless, they could look and say, oh boy, we're having too many home runs here. Because really, it's almost like a 2-to-1 ratio. You should probably have twice as many doubles as you do home runs across the board. And so they could adjust that. Say, hey, let's increase contact, but let's lower power, or at least home run power, and that sort of thing. If they could even give us more of like a home run power slider. Because the power slider, by the way, affects ground balls too. You put it too low, your ground balls are not going to reach the corner up the line. So anyway, another area they could look at there would be the actual statistics and they could link up these different statistics to different sliders. So again, doubles, home runs could link to power and so on. Again, you could do the same thing with errors, of course. If you're not seeing enough errors across the board, that's a very easy explanation of how they could increase the different sliders for outfielders and infielders and so on. Stolen bases, same thing. If your percentage is just too high, especially with average guys, like D. Gordon's probably not the best person to look at because he's going to have a very high average. But you're kind of average, solid base stealer. If that guy is consistently too low in success, based off of also the catcher and pitcher and things like that, or if they're too the opposite end, right? They could actually adjust either direction for that. So, of course, this could also go into pitching. If you're not seeing enough strikeouts, okay, maybe the AI contact slider needs to be lowered, or the timing slider, or the foul ball slider needs to be lowered because they're fouling off too many pitches they should be striking out on. Certainly, this could come into play with base on balls. Dynamic difficulty 2.0, if we were to see it, it could look and say, you're not anywhere near walking enough pitchers in the game. I luckily walked 5 this game, and luckily meaning getting realistic results, right? But it could say, hey, that's too many. Maybe if I'm walking 5 every single game, that's probably is a tick too high. And so they could say, well, we're going to bump up your control slider by 1 notch. But again, if you're consistently only walking 1 person a game, it might do the opposite and say, boy, we need to lower that from a 5 down to like a 0 or a 1 or what have you. And so, again, just different ways the box score could actually play in. We could even get into more specifics here. And if we look at the actual pitching results, again, this is just 1 game. But we're looking at 62% strikes thrown by my team, which is the actual MLB average, right? Most your generic starter who's not an ace is going to be throwing I think it is actually 62% strikes. First pitch is usually right around that same percentage, so again 60%. But the game could look at this and say, okay, that's good. We're going to adjust some other sliders, but we don't need to really adjust anything with your pitching, like kind of the slider I believe is called like strike frequency or something, and it of course applies more to the AI. But they could give us a human one. Maybe the difficulty to actually throw a first pitch strike or paint the corners could be a little bit trickier. So again, another way that dynamic difficulty could expand would be looking at strike percentages, first pitch strike percentages. Again, same thing at the AI, 65% on 59 first pitch. So it could be looking at this on both sides. Batter analysis, another area that MLB The Show could look and make adjustments for dynamic difficulty 2.0 if we were to see it. I'm looking at the foul ball percentage. If you look in the middle of this chart, it says fouled. The Mets, the AI team, fouled off 32 pitches on a total of 155, and that's 21%. Now that's a little bit high. The games I've been seeing, it's been a little bit lower than that, which is good because the MLB average over a course of, again, many games, But your typical modern day MLB game will see each team right around 15% of their foul balls. So now again, 21% one game, no big deal. No adjustment needs to be made. But if I'm consistently seeing this 3 games in a row where the AI is like 25, 26%, that's too high. So it could lower that foul ball frequency slider to properly adjust. And then also still measuring things like, okay, now did that impact too much the batting average ball in play? Because some of these weaker hits are now falling for bad outs and things like that, or being put in play for bad outs. So again, Marlins, the team I was using, the percentage was very good, so 14%. No adjustment would really need to be made there. Another area that could be looked at for this dynamic difficulty 2.0 would be the percentages of swings that actually end up in misses. Now, if you actually track this across Diamond Dynasty, you'd be shocked at how small. You're going to be seeing more like slow pitch softball results. I mean, there's a lot of contact being made. There's also a lot of swings and misses on the lower levels when you have people who just don't know the strike zone. But when you're playing in a legit game, if you make a decent swing, I mean, you're going to make contact. So looking at this AI, now again, this is using my own sliders, so there have been some tweaks made, but you can see we had 28%. If I add up the number of missed on total swings and the number of strikeouts on total swings, that's going to add up to 28% for me. So a slightly high, but we were facing DeGrom. He's a good pitcher, and so your better pitchers like that who get big swing and miss numbers like a Max Scherzer, Clayton Kershaw, they're going to be closer to that 30%. So that's actually not that high. 28% is probably pretty good, maybe a tick high. So again, probably not a huge adjustment. If you're seeing that against every single starter, that's probably a little too high. So the game could adjust. It could increase your your contact slider or your timing slider for the AI, right? If I look at the AI team, the Mets here, same thing. They're at 24%. That's pretty good. The MLB average is 21, right? Again, I talked earlier just a second ago about how your aces will be closer to that high 20s, even low 30s for some guys. Certainly, certain relievers are getting low 30s, like a Chapman and things like that. But 24 is pretty good because, again, 21 is that percentage. So, again, the game could look at this and say, okay, 24, consistent, pretty good. No adjustment needs to be made. If you start creeping into that 25, 26 every game, maybe you've made it a little too easy for your pitchers to get swings and misses. It could evaluate that. It could evaluate whether the AI is actually drawing enough walks, because if they're swinging too much, they're probably not, right? So they could really take this 2.0 and just dive a lot deeper than just the difficulty level. So I'm going to actually exit this game because this was my most recent franchise game I just finished, and I thought it would make a pretty good example here. And then let's actually go in and look at the actual slider menu. Because again, I've talked about some of these, but it might be helpful to actually see some of these different sliders and what they do. And I'll be brief on these. I won't go through every single one what they do, but yeah, let's just take a look. Right. So if we go into the slider menu, by the way, this is Mike Lowe 2.1 sliders is what you're looking at here. But I've made quite a few adjustments that work for me. Right. Others are using them as well, and it seemed to be going well. But definitely check your own results. But what would be cool is if Diamond Difficulty did this for you. Right? They put me out of business, right? It would be the whole goal of this. And so the way I play it, right, I've increased my contacts on Hall of Fame. I just wasn't seeing enough hits drop in. Another thing, by the way, that the game could do, it's not just about hitting. Sometimes if the defense is too quick to get to some of those line drives, it can do things like lower the fielder run speed, which is what I've done, or lower the fielder reaction. That's going to create more hits too, right? If you're not seeing enough doubles, okay, well, maybe the arm strength's too low. Or is too high, right? They're making too many perfect throws and that sort of thing. So this could help with doubles. Or you could increase base runner speed if you're not seeing enough infield singles and things like this. So really small, intricate little ways that the game could take this and really take dynamic difficulty, which is an awesome idea. It's a brilliant idea. But let's take it to the next level and not just measure OPS. Let's measure all of this. And let's link different stats and outcomes per at-bats and per pitch and everything else that can link up to each one of these sliders, whether it's stamina, right? Are your relief pitchers throwing too many pitches per game or too many innings in a season and that sort of thing? That could be adjusted automatically. So all of this could be tied. It could be tinkered throughout the season and even updated through patches to sort of refine it based on what we're seeing in the community. It's something that could even be used in Diamond Dynasty. Again, just as we track all of these users, which obviously the show team is doing. So yeah, it can be a really, really, really cool thing. So that's kind of the gist of this. Dynamic difficulty, a brilliant idea. Now, how can the team at San Diego Studios take it to that next level, right? And that's what this whole really video is about here. I know there was at least one comment, and I will respond, by the way, to comments that come after the stream. And yeah, I will definitely be doing that. This just says face reveal. I don't really know. Oh, you want to see my face? I haven't even showered yet today, so that's not going to happen just yet. But if that's what you mean, it's not that exciting. But anyway, if you do have questions about this, let's get some talk going about this. Whether it's on Operation Sports Forum, you're welcome to respond to the YouTube channel as well. I will respond to those questions, every single one of them. So I think this is an interesting discussion. Again, dynamic difficulty is great. It's an awesome concept, but it's about 3 years old now. Let's take it to the next level. Let's see what dynamic difficulty 2.0 could look like. I've had some ideas. I don't have all the ideas. So if you have something to share, please do. Post a response, reply to others, right? I think this is the way we can really get some community involvement, and maybe San Diego Studios will take a look here and possibly be able to help us out and take dynamic difficulty to the next level. So thank you for watching. Thank you for participating in the discussion. And again, I will see you all on Operation Sports. If you'd like, you can follow me on Twitter. It's MikeLowe_OS. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel if you'd like as well. And otherwise, I'll be seeing you all on Operation Sports and in Diamond Dynasty and elsewhere around the not just MLB Show, but just the sport gaming community. So thanks so much, everybody, and I'll be talking to you all soon.